Okay. So yeah, Andrew, tell us about how on earth do we do math without school?
Properly. I think just a little full disclosure about myself. I'm a math geek. Loved it growing up. Competed for Mathematics Olympiad in the United States, and really, took a lot of my identity around it. Became a electrical engineer, and I think as parents, we know that many of our programs, college programs, really cue off of the youth actually getting into calculus, being successful in math, and that's into a hard requirement in many of the sciences. So if I recommend to parents, it's really, make sure you work with your kids early, keep them supported. Math is, as we teach it in most places, right, really requires that it's a very hierarchical thing, and make sure they never really fall off that math train. Right? Feel supported, maybe in a social environment, maybe in a less stressful one than normal testing, so that even at a young age they feel successful, and have an appreciation for math, not just see it as something that gets tested a lot, but also take advantage of integrating math into other areas. So have them work on projects that involve math. And earlier I brought up a lemonade stand. My son was working on a Pinewood Derby track, right, and was building it, and was faced with the problem of how high do you have to make the drop in order to get the cars going at a certain speed so that they can go loop to loop. And then he learned calculus, right? So I think integrating mathematics into real life things that are very motivational to your kids can give them an appreciation and a deep sense of understanding math that they may not get in school.
Terrific. Thank you. Just because I want to say something, how's my audio? Is my audio okay?
It's good.
Okay, my audio is okay. Before going on to Kath, I want to mention that, so I do think math is super important. And I would add that for parents who don't feel comfortable tutoring their kids in math, I'm talking about kind of a homeschool, alt-school model. You can get a decent tutor almost anywhere in the country for, say, 30 bucks an hour. That's probably generous. A lot of places easy to get somebody for 20 bucks an hour. 2 or 3 times a week, an hour of math tutoring is probably way more valuable than 95% of math classes anywhere. And so I would encourage parents who are not confident on the math front to go ahead and invest in 2 or 3 times a week math tutor. And that person can be self-paced, customized, and so forth. Probably give your child an incredible math education. I'd also say Nobel explorers, the other piece of math is community. People don't think of math as community because normal schools never provide math and community, but community is important for everything. Nobel explorers is creating math communities. I'm not sure on what timeline, but I think a private tutor plus math community, maybe you could get a better math education at the top 3%, 2% of schools in the US, maybe. Just say something about the timeline for launching your math clubs at Nobel Explorers, Andrew.
So we're now in alphas, and after the first of the year, you'll see us with a math club offering where kids as young as 8 can actually join in with other kids from around the globe, and really work on math, fun math projects, connect with kids from other cultures, and really see math not as something that you get tested on, but as something that's beautiful. It's a tool, a language of discovery of nature that you can use and use it to connect with other kids from all over the world. I think one of the tragedies that we have as a society is math is it's a beautiful language, right? It is a language, right? It's a language like we have a spoken language. It's also a different way to think about things. But if you look at how we teach it in most places, it's not. We don't teach it like we teach how you learn a language from a young age, right? And what Nobel is really doing is bringing it into a place where you learn it through discovery, through application, through connection with other people, right? And rather than fearing it and being tested on all the time, you can actually enjoy it and use it as a tool and something that connects you with other kids from around the globe.
Terrific. Thank you. Kath, what on earth, how are you personally destroying kids' lives by taking them out of school? It was really aggressive there, but thought I'd put you on the spot. Yeah, what do we do if we're not in school?
Goodness, well, I see children who are not in school all the time. So for me, it's really the normal state. And we do look at children who are sort of stuck in a system. We're sort of locked in between these four walls as it's a little bit sad. You've got this whole world out there and all these different possibilities of what is possible. Yet you have these children who are at school, and I think they're not rebelling because they really want to be with kids. Right. So the idea is if you are pulling your children out of school, you need to find groups of children who are doing different things that your kids are going to really like. So, you know, pretty much all children love park days, and they love theatre, and they love all these different things. So if you dig even just below the surface in the homeschooling communities around you, you'll find that there are homeschoolers socializing their kids in all these areas of passion all over the place, and the children are really happy. They see adults as resources, and you can really customize a really beautiful pathway for each of your children. You've only got a couple. A teacher typically has 30 that they have to address, but or maybe you have more than two. I only have two, so I think everyone has two. But you know, and in my house, you know, we have a fairly relaxed culture. So I've been able to sort of create an environment for my children at home and at workspace, this learning environment I created, that is sort of in line with our family culture. You know, I firmly believe that like the way that we're evolving as a society is that we want to have a lot of choice. Like I remember coming to America in 1995, and there were no Starbucks, and there was just Dunkin' Donuts, and you go to Dunkin' Donuts and you get a sweet and light, which is coffee. If you don't know what a sweet and light is, coffee with sugar and milk, very light. And I was thinking, yuck, it's very, you know, anyway, it wasn't my type of coffee. But anyway, they didn't have a Starbucks or a place to go and meet other people. And I really got so excited when Starbucks came to America because I could finally get the coffee that I wanted, right? I had no idea it was going to like diversify into this thing where you've got all these different syrups, and you've got, you know, all these different size cups, and you've got different temperatures, and you can have all sorts of different drinks, right? So now as a society, we're demanding choice, right? And we all have very, very individual tastes. I mean, my coffee now, if I go to Starbucks, I'm very particular. And I also feel the same way about my children's education. You know, my child is wired, and both my children wired completely differently, and they thrive with different learning ways that they learn different things. And I'm not opposed to doing things. I'm not opposed to worksheets. I don't think you should have a monoculture of worksheets. I think that as humans, we want a lot of variety, a lot of spontaneity, a lot of room for the possibilities that surrounding us to enter into our lives and to explore and to have a really meaningful, joyous learning childhood, right? The way that we evolve to have it, not being stuck in this very factory model, very monoculture, very working to please other people, trying to be turned into a product that may or may not be useful to society. And I think most people on this panel would say probably not useful to society. When we have this incredible opportunity to choose from all the resources that are out there, right? And there are so many, like it's overwhelming for most people. But if you really nail down and listen to your child will tell you what they need. Right. And then you can really you can narrow down by talking to people on Facebook groups to find exactly what your child needs, or at least, let's say, 5 different options that you can then explore, work out what really works. And typically children will change how they want to learn, like midway. They don't want to do the same type of curriculum for 2 years in a row. They might get bored with learning that way and want to try a different style as they grow and change. And we are very beautiful and unique, changeable creatures. So it's just a very exciting, beautiful lifestyle to not be in school with your children. And I think that we have this unique opportunity to make something really, truly remarkable and to nurture the very essence of those beautiful beings that you have created. So that's what gets me all excited about what we're talking about today.
Terrific. Well, I'm going to round it up ultimately by talking a little bit more about the academic high end. And, only 3% of American students go to competitive colleges, and yet I would say, maybe 80% of parents are anxious about college. It's frankly ridiculous. But I want to talk about the academic high end because once people feel good about maintaining the academic high end, Harvard, Stanford, MIT, et cetera, for their kids, then they can maybe relax and appreciate everything else you guys are saying. And so, but before I do so, I want to point out that, I've hired a lot of professional creatives, graphic designers, video producers, actually package designers, it's a thing, designers of all sorts. Also, I know a lot of entrepreneurs. I ran a nonprofit promoting entrepreneurial solutions for world problems for 10 years, and I know thousands of entrepreneurs. And then finally, salespeople. I had a summer job selling storm windows once, and I've developed huge appreciation for, say, good old-fashioned door-to-door sales. Realtors, real estate agents make good money, many of them, not all, but many of them do, and a lot of them are great salespeople. And what I want to say about all of those sorts of jobs, entrepreneurs, creatives, salespeople, is that when you meet somebody who's great, and I want everybody to put in their mind a great creative they've met, a great entrepreneur they've met, and a great salesperson they've met, and think, do you care what grade they got in high school or college? And the fact is you don't care at all. You're going off, is this person, an amazing, does the creative produce great work? Does the entrepreneur produce cool stuff I want? Does the salesperson, are they really, providing me value and helping me understand why I might be interested in this product or service? And I've met a lot of great salespeople, entrepreneurs, and creatives who got D's and F's, high school, college dropouts. They were very alienated from schooling. And in fact, schooling really did not help them much at all. So I'd first want to point out that there are large, important, often very lucrative categories of employment where school, talking secondary school, is pretty much worthless. Now, going back to the academic, Andrew and I talked a little bit about the math side. I want to talk about reading and writing. I happen to love reading. I'm a voracious reader. I read a lot of difficult material for fun constantly. And I want to share my love of reading with all kinds of people. So one of the things I do in my schools, expanseonline.co is the current one, so we have Socratic dialogues and texts. And what that means is we all read something, and then it's kind of like a book club, but I would say more deliberately intellectual in a book club, often therefore a bit more philosophical. We read challenging materials, not because we like challenge per se, but if you want to know what lots of different systems of thought are, you got to read, different philosophers and literature and theorists and so forth, biologists, whatever. And then you explore their ideas. But what that does is if we have a social reason, if I don't prepare for class, Tory is going to rip my argument to shreds, and Kath is going to know so much more than I do, and Andrew is going to be able to cite passages in the text that I missed because I either didn't read it or was clueless. And so I have this social motivation to come prepared to class. It doesn't work always and everywhere. Initially most students are used to, the standard game in school is they pretend to teach and the students pretend to learn. But eventually you get to real learning where, in order to come and be part of this social experience, I need to read and understand the text. And then if I have peers who are saying really cool things, wow, Tory thinks that, Kath thinks that, Andrew thinks that, I want to be part of the game. And so gradually students develop an interest in reading serious material, an interest in understanding it, and an interest in being able to articulate their own ideas. And by means of this interest in articulating their own ideas, they become much better readers, writers, thinkers, listeners, so forth. And then gradually we transition that to writing because, if Tory just had all these stupid ideas in class and I know he's wrong, I need to argue him by saying, boom, 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 boom. And that Kath, man, I need to argue against her, boom, boom, boom. And Andrew, I'm going to rip him to shreds, boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, I've outlined an essay. Let's go ahead and formalize it. Let's organize it. And this is how I get kids to write essays. And by means of doing this, we can get students to arbitrarily high levels of, say, SAT verbal scores, excellence in writing. I have students who are publishing writing as high school students in, adult journals with, 1 million online followers. So Everything that Kath and Tory and Andrew said about project-based learning and collaboration and exploring your own interests, absolutely, totally on board with it. And if you want to crank up the math, kind of do the kinds of things Andrew was talking about, and if you want to crank up reading and writing, you know, this is a path for doing so. Then finally, you want to have one other piece that may have been implicit, but that's a personal mentor. So I think, I think it actually is helpful if it's outside the family. Some of us can be personal mentors for our own child. I think it's kind of helpful to have an outside mentor, just because mom and, you know, child and dad and child dynamics can be funny or challenging occasionally, maybe more than occasionally with adolescents. So I think it's also good to have an outside mentor. So another piece of our program is every child has 30 minutes of one-on-one mentoring, but it could be, you know, whatever, tutors, advisors, whatever, somebody who has your child's best interest at heart and can help them navigate the world of academics, the world of personal life, the world of life direction and life purpose. Ideally, with the support of a mentor, as well as exploring their interests, cool projects, great math options if they want, great reading, writing options if you want. Your child can, you know, if that's their thing, get into MIT, Stanford, Harvard, whatever, without stress, by the way, by doing what they love and loving what they do. And then if that's not their path, they can go off and become a great salesperson, entrepreneur, creative, go to, you know, UT or University of Oregon or wherever. A lot of this is getting on board with supporting your child and becoming amazing and being, I would say, radically agnostic as to what that amazing is. That is, if they're going to live a happy, fulfilled life, you can help them live a happy, fulfilled life. And for most students, school is probably not going to be part of living a happy, fulfilled life. So if you can help them escape from that, all the better. So maybe I'll pause there and see if
I'm going to build on that
anything.
just for a second, Michael, because I think what you said, I mean, when you think about these elite colleges, they're looking for kids that are thriving. And then your goal is to get your kid thriving. And if school's not doing it, then you have to look at alternatives. But that once they're thriving, that's where they'll do something that will get them noticed and get them into a quality college. That's really what it comes down to.
Yep.
I think just to add on what Michael said, and you said, Tory, those acts of collaborating with other people, of working as part of a team, those things are the things that give you purpose and help develop and create the environment that your child will learn to thrive in. Lots of times we think of somebody who's like self-motivated, and that's just not true. Right? What really happens is we get together with a group of other people. We're doing something meaningful. We're doing something together. We feel that we are a social animal, and that energy, you know, to work with or to collaborate with, to create something better as a team, is very powerful in us as humans, right? And so the environment that Michael and you're talking about is one where you're immersing your child in that, and they develop their own sense of purpose, right? They start to build that. I think of it as like a muscle of determination and focus and purpose in their brain, right? And that pattern of working together with other people, right? Not waiting just for, you know, for just themselves or just their grade or their effort, which is a very unhuman or dehumanizing exercise to go through. So yes, if you want your child to have that purpose, put them in this collaborative environment, and they will find their purpose in that exercise.
Totally agreed. And I want to emphasize something implicit in what you said about, you know, working together, purpose, doing things together, all of that. Some parents are kind of, you know, are focused in on what school is their child at, is their child doing homework and all of that. For me, the much more important factor that I think parents ought to be absolutely monomaniacal about is my child connected to peers who have a sense of purpose and direction? Because if your child, again, especially adolescents, if they work with a group of other kids who are doing amazing projects, it's like magic. Your kid will do amazing projects, and it really does seem effortless. On the other hand, if your kid is hanging around with, you know, people that are goofing off, who are resentful, who are negative, you know, maybe they're stoners, maybe they're just, you know, addicted to social media or video games. If your child is immersed with kids who make fun of learning, for instance, whoa, every molecule in my being would be screaming if I saw my child just starting to hang out with kids who are not focused on some sense of purpose and direction. And I'm not just talking about, you know, a certain kid down the neighborhood or whatever. When I go to public school lunchrooms, every molecule in my being screams, this is not a learning environment. And I'm sure there are exceptions, and there are great public schools, and so there are a few places that really are learning environments, but the vast majority of them, learning is the last thing on these kids' mind. And I know if my child was in that, I would pull them out ASAP, because they're being contaminated with anti-learning attitudes when they could be spontaneously, you know, just with joy. And actually, Kath, because you were a nurturer and gatherer of community, including peer community, I'd love for you to say a little bit about how did you, I was going to say orchestrate, but nurture is maybe a better term, maybe curate. So how did you curate positive community?
Yes, well, you know, I think that it all starts with us listening to our families, right? We're creating this culture where we listen to each other, that we're all trying to solve together. We're united to create the best possible education for all the learners. So if you have this overarching culture that we're all adhering to, we're all naturally sort of thinking in the same direction. How can we bring the best possible resources to the center? And then how can we create learning experiences that are going to light every child up? Because all the children in the workspace environment are going to be intermingling, right? And we're acting as a whole. So, you know, if you have a situation where you've got people who are very negative in there, it's going to affect the whole. So creating that context for learning and that culture that, you know, you're talking about, this industrious culture, is, you know, it's very important, and it might not happen naturally. I think you especially at the beginning, you need to really lay it out so people know what to do. And also the children have to feel a sense of permission that they're allowed to do things, because coming out of the traditional school system, they got in trouble a lot. They had a lot of rules and they had to comply. I mean, the rules, especially in some schools, are very severe. If you, you know, if you step out of line, or you know, don't get that whole pass to go to the bathroom and those sort of things. So children have grown up, and most children have grown up with this culture of no, that it's not possible right now, or we're busy right now, or it's not the right time right now. They might have an idea, but they don't have that permission. They don't feel that they can actually go and do that thing. So I needed to create a space where they had permission, that they would be listened to, right? That it was actually possible to manifest their idea, and there are a lot of people who could help them in that space. And it was really just nurturing that, and then also helping parents understand, you know, a framework that they could use to actually create learning experiences that the children would enjoy, and just creating an atmosphere in this growth mindset really made a big difference. And I think once, if you get that right, you just keep tweaking it. It just evolves as a community will. It's a organism, so it's going to have its own personality, and you're just watching it and tweaking and adding. And my mantra is I'm continually trying to add value to the community, right? Provide things that they're asking for, make it better for them, and the rest just really plays out by itself.
No, absolutely. I'm going to kind of riff a little bit on something that occurred to me. Is many people tend to think, I think a stereotype, sometimes unstated in our society, is that as it were, the good students are the good people, good conventional students, and the students who don't do very well at conventional school are in some ways the bad people. I don't know that anybody says that, but I think there's sort of a background, you know, prejudice in that direction. And one of the things I want to emphasize is very often on the, say, gifted students or high math classes, sometimes you have students who can be very mean and egocentric and kind of harsh vis-a-vis others. And conversely, a lot of the very best purpose-driven students I've had have been brilliant creators who may have had learning difficulties, learning differences. They may actually have been very academically, you know, challenged in many ways. And yet some of these creatives, when I put them in an environment that supported them doing amazing projects, become, as it were, the most positive energy on behalf of, you know, a purpose-driven creative life. And so one of the reasons I am outraged by one-size-fits-all schooling is it's taking some of these wonderful people and making them feel stupid and less than and unsuccessful, when we should be putting them in an environment when they can be kind of amazing, you know, leaders and models of how to live a life as an adolescent.
I love how you said that, Michael. And I think that, like now, like your children are just smaller adults, right? So like if I was creating a learning environment for adults, right, what would that look like? Right? I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to go back to school and have to get a hall pass and have school like it is. And I would not want that for my child. And this is not the culture that we grew up in. And they're marinating in that culture 6, 7, 8 hours a day, right? And it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. Well, especially if it's really different than the culture that you have at home. And if socialization is the only reason, if socialization is the only reason, right? Like most parents say, yes, I want them to have an education, but you know, they won't be socialized unless they're in that kind of environment. I would challenge parents to go and find other ways, or just even look for other ways that they are socialized. Like in the summertime, do they miss socialization? Are they not being socialized during the summer at summer camps and all these other things that your children could be involved in? You know, and I'd also look for the kinds of people, like Michael said, that you want your child to be hanging around. I don't think you need a whole group necessarily, but it's a really great motivator for your child to have one learning buddy. Like I'm really into children finding other learners to learn with and to motivate each other and to dive into different projects and do things together, because it is so much fun when you've got, you know, a person who shares your passion, who you can work with and you can grow up with, and you've got your person, right? So I've seen that work really, really well as well.
No, go ahead, Andrew.
I want to, for what Kath said and from Michael said, the common thread I hear in all these is you're doing things with people, right? And let's be clear, you know, that's what makes us successful as humans, right? That we can do things with other people, like us right here. We're working together on something, and those skills, the things that you learn to do when you're with your learning buddy and you're recognized and rewarded for learning together rather than isolated and told that that's cheating, right? What if those are the skills you actually need in life, right? Mm-hmm. What if that relationship, that collaboration with other people is the very thing you need to develop in order to succeed in life, and the environment that you're putting your child in is actually taking it away from them? Going back to your top math person, right, or those people that, I ask people, what do you call a person that has STEM skills and soft skills, right? And the answer is a unicorn, right? It's a mythical creature. If you find one, capture it, right? Let's study it, right? But what really happens is there's nothing inherently, that the people who are good at STEM or don't have these soft skills. I believe, right, that we cook them that way. We put them through schools and we hold them up on these individual pedestals, right? And then we take away their collaborative skills. We take away their empathy. We put them in hyper-competitive environments where they're encouraged to do things on their own. And we take away the very skills that we know that they need in life in order to recognize them as having succeeded in what we call school. So amen about collaboration and learning together.
Big time. I want to go back to a term that Kath used that I know I use a lot, is kind of what is the environment they're being pickled in? Because my approach is I'm not too worried about a one-time encounter with this or that kind of person or situation, but I'm very concerned with what my children or all children are being pickled in, day out, to say 6 to 8 hours a day for years. And in particular, I want to focus in on, if we want young people to be exposed to generosity and kindness and honesty and integrity and so forth, we need to have them pickled in environments where most of the people, most of the time, are kind, generous, honest, and so forth. Most middle schools and most high schools, in my experience, are dominated by the bullies. The level of gratuitous meanness that is pervasive in many schools, I think, should be unacceptable for any parent who cares about their child. I've often said the best marketing for school choice would be to have a live cam in the school bathrooms. You see the kids You know, the way they tease, beat up, pick on each other, abuse each other routinely for fun, you know, in the bathrooms, in the lunchrooms, you know, in the parking lot outside of school. I just can't believe we allow this on a, you know, day-to-day basis. And again, if your kid spends one day in school and gets, you know, beat up in the lunchroom and then, you know, slapped up in the bathroom, he or she will survive it. If your school is pickled in this, if your child is pickled in this day after day, week after week, you know, I would say that's how we get to society we have, where kind of meanness rules because we cultivate kids in an incredibly mean environment.
It's not just then in the school either. It's, you know, with social media that it just extends the schools to being 24 hours.
Yep.
And this is, you know, you've got that rise in suicides and, you know, the emotional abuse, physical abuse. And then also teaching children that, you know, in order to succeed, they've got to like work out what someone else wants them to do and do it exactly how they want them to do it. So there's just no room for thinking laterally, right? It's just a very much do exactly what that teacher wants. It's like, just tell me what I need to do to get an A and I'll do that, right? And
Yep.
they get the rubric, they do that. I mean, it's the game, right? It's how to play that game, right? And that is really busy work learning how to play that game, I think.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
They can
Absolutely.
learn what they need to learn so much more efficiently outside the school system. And they can also, if you want to do traditional outside the school system, you can do that. There are dual enrollment classes, very inexpensive dual enrollment classes. Children as young as 13 are doing college level work. You can do pretty much you can create school at home if you want to, so you can control your child's environment and their peer group and help them become that human that they are, their DNA is telling them to become, right? How they're wired, what they care about, what they're good at. And you can find those intersections much easier than if their primary influences are a negative peer group.
Yep. And just, you know, I would say the old reading, writing, mathematics is not a bad simplification of school. That is, if they're, you know, adequately developing, and I think it's up to each child and parent to know what adequately, but if they're developing with respect to reading, writing, mathematics, and they're doing cool real world projects, they're having great, healthy peer interactions all day, every day, they're done, you know? And that's why I'm perfectly offended by the whole credential monster, the whole system monster, then all the experts with curriculum and this and that. You know, most of us forget most of that afterwards. We spend years having this forced upon us. You know, we want our children to be capable people. So I would always say, is this activity, is this interaction helping them to become truly capable? Or is it an artifact of the system kind of being pushed down at them? And we had just accepted it blindly for many years. And the more a thoughtful person looks at exactly what's happening in school, moment to moment to moment, look at your child's homework assignment, they're doing Zoom classes, look at what's going online in Zoom, and you think, if this were me, would I become more capable by means of this? And I can't help but think that most parents, if they're a little bit of an independent thinker and honest with themselves, would say, probably not the best use of my child's time. How do I find something better?
I'm gonna add on to what you just said. And my wife's a middle school math teacher at the best middle school in Maryland, and I would look over her shoulder at the math curriculum when she was teaching the kids. And, you know, it was really loved math growing up. Electrical engineer, got a master's in finance, was a technology company, and so I knew not only what did I learn, but what do you need in life. And I saw the artifacts of curriculum. I would ask my wife, why are you teaching them that? Why are you taking off points if they don't put an arrow on the end of the line, or they don't use green pen, right, to mark up their assignments? You know, like why? And there were no good answers. And it really amounted to something being punitive, that let me see how high of a bar I can set for these kids, and we'll see if they jump over it. And therefore, we've done a better job. Well, I'm going to say no, right? Not only did you not encourage and teach them in the right things to learn, right? You taught them to do arbitrary items that were not useful in life, that were just there because you told them to do that. There's no sense of purpose in that. There's no deeper learning. I'd rather that child go off and learn how to run a simulation and do a lemonade stand, or understand how how viruses spread, or understand how you could figure out how much concrete you need to build into a house. Right? Things that are far more instructive, motivational, and useful for the rest of your lives. So it doesn't go back to Michael's comment, right? Don't be intimidated by the curriculum monster, by the credential monster. I was. I'm going to say is I was a parent who not until long ago was really worried that that's what my child needed. But I'll tell you that they don't. They don't need the credentials. They don't need those classes. What they need is real learning, and focus on that.
Yeah, I just want to add to that my daughter did no math in middle school, and she started an animal rescue. So I guess she did accounting, and she did all these things. She had a network of 9 foster families, and she just really loved dogs until she changed her mind and wanted to do musical theatre. But anyway, that's another story. But when it came to getting into college, we realized that she'd have to do her SAT, ACT about 6 months before that time. We got a tutor. She caught up. She ended up in the top 10% in the country in math. And now, I mean, she does calculus for fun now, right? So, and math is not really her thing. She published her first book at 15, right? She had time to do all these things, right? And she had so much energy and passion to do the things she loved. And every time I tried to homeschool her, and I'm saying, okay, you got to do the 5-paragraph essay, and you've got to do it like this, and all those sort of things, because I was feeling guilty as a parent, right? And I'm thinking she's going to need that, so I'm going to have to do this. So I'm reading up on it. I'm studying how to do this paragraph essay. I'm downloading a rubric, right, from the computer, and I'm, crossing the T's, dotting the I's. But she had no interest in doing that, right? But yet she's about to publish her 3rd book. So and she's a senior at Tufts, and she had no problem getting into colleges. And in fact, we haven't had any problem getting any of our children into colleges from Workspace, and they've been doing school any way you can imagine. They have been creating individualized pathways, but they're all excited about learning, and they're all doing their thing, and they're all finding their particular place, their particular next step. And we are a whole community helping every child get into where they want to go. So I wouldn't fear that. I wouldn't fear really creating something really personalized for your child that's really based on how they learn and who they are as a person, because you have this faith in them, right? You're telling them by taking them out, you have this faith in them, they're going to come through for you on the other end, right? And they're going to evolve into the person they're meant to be, and they're going to find that when it comes to the time, they're going to find their right next step, right? And so this is how easy it is, really, right? It's not difficult, and you as a parent need to own this power that you have to give this gift to your children.
So you're very good at the warm, nice side of it, Kath, and I want to always put a little bit of the mean, hard edge on it, just to kind of balance. But the question that I think might be very easy. For me, it's so easy to pull people out of and encourage people to leave school, because I see it as so damaging. But with any child, I always like to think, would I hire this person? Would I create a company with this person? Or would I recommend this person to one of my trusted relationships? And it depends on what it is, obviously, but if not, why not? And if I would not recommend this person to one of my trusted relationships, is it because they didn't master Algebra 2, or they got an F on, middle school history test? No, that's ridiculous. We never think about that when recommending people. Is it that they need to be more, do they need to be more punctual? Do they need to dress better? Do they need to write better? But if they need to write better, okay, how do I coach them so that if I recommend this person, I won't be embarrassed once this person sends their first email to the boss? So I always have really concrete nuts and bolts, what makes this person valuable in the world, kind of standards, if you will. And then, when I'm coaching a kid, and it's supporting, love you, want to make your life, help you have a brilliant life. And dude, if you write emails like that, nobody's going to take you seriously, And so I'm also I think it's important to provide valuable feedback about what does matter in the world. But usually it's not a matter of anything having to do with school, or 80%, 90% of what happens at school. It's much more practical, immediate, direct skills. If you can master a spreadsheet, hey, that's useful. If not, hey, I'll have to explain to people you can't master a spreadsheet. Whatever it is, I try to paint a picture of the world out there for kids and be really honest with them about, hey, you want this opportunity, this is what you need. Whether or not you want to take it is up to you, but you got to know what's out there.
Yeah, well, if you talk to any college, the first year college teachers, they'll tell you that there's so many children entering who can't write well at all.
Yep.
And, they have to basically repeat high school in their first year of college. I mean, how can you be in a school system for 12 years, right, and not be prepared for first year college?
Because
right?
It's a charade. It's mostly a charade. Again, they pretend to teach, we pretend to learn, that kind of thing. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think that if your child is really motivated, and like we are dealing when they're outside the school system, right? We don't have the external motivators necessarily that they have in schools, right? To push children. So, it's more of an art form of you really understanding and listening to your child and really cultivating the inner drive and motivation of your child, right? And, that is something that is a gift, right? It's a gift that you'll give your child for the rest of their life if they can really develop a strong drive and strong direction to be doing what will help them become excellent and be able to make money and have a meaningful life going forward.
Totally cool. We're almost out of time. It looks like we have no questions. Any last comments to our audience, illustrious colleagues?
Say focus on social environments that you can engage your kids with. Obviously, with COVID, that's more important now than ever. The mental health of our kids, but before even social media and devices and gaming to challenge them, right? With COVID, it's even more important. But try to connect your youth with other youth. Do something meaningful. Do something together. Not only will they learn skills that they really need in life in terms of collaboration, they'll acquire purpose and they'll feel better in general. So really focus on social learning opportunities.
All right. And with that, thank you for joining us on When School's Not Working. And we'll see you next week, 8 p.m. Eastern on Monday evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.